10 world's most expensive countries to live in. The cost of living and surviving in a given country differs from one country to the next. While certain countries are inexpensive and affordable to live in, this is not the case in others. This could be due to the rapid rise in inflation, which is defined as an increase in the general level of prices or a decrease in the value of money, resulting in a significant reduction in the country's standard of living. In recent years, most countries have struggled with inflation, resulting in high living costs. The countries discussed in this video are rated based on their average living costs. High taxes, food, labor, housing, and transportation costs can all contribute to a country's cost of living. Even though a country's cost of living is high, keep in mind that there are cities inside that country that are low cost and affordable, or vice versa. Nonetheless, these countries have high living standards and relatively good wages. So if you're seeking for a luxurious place to live, Grace Media has made your search easier by compiling an incredible list of the world's 10 most expensive countries to live in. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and switch on notifications to stay up to date on our captivating content. 10. Ireland. This country attracts millions of tourists each year due to their rich history, stunning landscapes, and exquisite views. If you plan to relocate here, the cost of living will most likely be the most important factor to consider. This can vary depending on your own circumstances and tastes, as well as from city to city. There are, however, a few techniques to budget for your trip to Ireland and plan out your costs wisely. When compared to other European countries, the cost of living is relatively high, yet it is far from the most expensive country in the world. When determining how much it costs to live in Ireland, some essential figures to consider include: housing monthly rent for furnished accommodation in a costly region is based on an average of €2,174, whereas the same type of accommodation costs €1,769. Dublin's cost of living is 33% higher than that of Cork and 47% higher than that of Belfast. A single person's monthly cost is anticipated to be roughly €2,728, and a family of four's cost is estimated to be €4,809. It's worth noting that, while the cost of rent has grown in recent years, the cost of health insurance, transportation, and food has decreased significantly. 9. Israel. This country, which is recognized as the biblical holy place by Jews, Christians, and Muslims, is located in the Middle East and is bordered by the Mediterranean Sea, providing an ideal temperature for both tourists and visitors. Living in this country is a great experience with a dynamic cultural scene and a religious environment. For most religious people, this country is a fantastic tourism destination. With so many tourists visiting each year, Israel's average cost of living is higher than most other countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. The cost of living in this holy land can range from low to high, depending on where you choose to live and your lifestyle. The cost of living for a family of four is 16,734 Israeli shekels, whereas it is 9,080 Israeli shekels for a single individual. The cost of housing in this country varies by city, with four-bedroom flats costing around $1,974 in the most expensive cities. Despite the high expense of housing, the government has subsidized basic education until the age of 12, with only minimal levies. Because of the high cost of housing, this country is one of the most expensive places to live in the world. 8. Japan. High-quality goods and services are highly valued in Japanese society. Food, clothing, and electronics are all expected to be of the highest quality, as are services in the food sector. This quest for high-quality things comes at a premium price. This country's cost of living is consistently listed among the highest in the world. The nation's capital is routinely recognized as one of the world's most costly cities. A single person living in Tokyo may expect to spend roughly $1,100 per month on their living expenses, not including rent. When you factor in the typical rental price for a one-bedroom apartment, your costs rise to approximately $2,200. In Tokyo, a family of four will see their number treble, residents should expect to spend a large portion of their income on housing. Though eating in traditional restaurants can be costly, this can easily be avoided by visiting one of the many inexpensive ramen shops or family restaurants known as Bamiyasu, which often provide both Japanese and Western cuisine for between $5 and $20 per plate. 7. Singapore. It is general knowledge that Singapore's average cost of living is expensive. In Singapore, a single person's typical monthly expenses, excluding rent, are roughly $2,000. However, for a four-person household, this figure is much higher, increasing to roughly $5,000 each month. It is common knowledge that Singapore has a high cost of living. The city-state offers a wonderful lifestyle for those who can afford it, from soaring rent costs to some of the world's most expensive private education. It's important to remember that not all living costs are expensive. If you eat meals from local establishments, dining out and restaurant costs can be affordable. Taking the bus instead of a taxi can save money on transportation. But having a car in this country is much more expensive because the government imposes greater taxes on automobile owners in order to reduce pollution. The most expensive rent is in the central region. This location contains the country's financial and shopping hub, making it more expensive to rent in. Because education in Singapore is so expensive, most residents send their children to international schools. 6. Denmark. Living in the Danish Republic can be quite costly, but you will most likely receive a high salary, free education, and health care. However, almost half of your salary will be deducted after taxes. Denmark is a member of the European Union as well as the Schengen zone. Denmark has significant relations to Norway, Finland, Iceland, and Sweden as a Nordic country. Learning about the typical cost of living in Denmark can help you determine what kind of lifestyle you can maintain in the nation. Major cities such as Copenhagen and Aarhus can be fairly costly to live in. Both cities are in the top 15 most expensive cities in Europe, with Copenhagen being one of the most expensive places in the world. However, the country's high salaries should compensate for its high cost of living. The highest average wage in Copenhagen is roughly $7,850 per month, while the lowest average salary in the region is around $6,800 per month. A single person's monthly expenses, excluding rent, are around $1,100, while a family of four's monthly expenses, excluding rent, are around $3,500. A month's worth of utilities, including water heating and electricity, costs roughly $200. Because of the high level of living and pricing in the country's largest cities, it is one of the most expensive countries to live in. 5. Luxembourg. This country is rich in natural resources, culture, arts, and history. Despite its small size, it is a major economic and political force. Despite the fact that living in Luxembourg is expensive, it remains a favorite destination for emigrants. The cost of living is relatively high in comparison to most of its European neighbors, to the point where inhabitants frequently cross borders to buy electrical equipment and luxury items from Belgium, France, and Germany. Luxembourg's housing costs are extremely high. Renting is the ideal option if you just want to stay in the country for a short time. If you plan to stay for a long time, you should consider purchasing a home. Renting a house in this country can be rather costly. In addition to the monthly rent, you may be required to pay a 1 to 5 month deposit. The typical rent in Luxembourg city center is roughly €1,600 for a one-bedroom apartment, and a 3-bedroom residential residence can cost up to €4,000. In order to obtain a mortgage in Luxembourg, a deposit of 20 to 25% will be required. All people have access to free basic health care through the public health care system. Employed people, on the other hand, contribute 2.8% of their gross income to the health care system on a monthly basis. Employers are also responsible for having the cost of the contribution on behalf of their employees. For registered residents under the Luxembourg Social Security system, state schools are free. 4. Bahamas. According to the World Bank's 2014 World Development Report, The Bahamas has one of the highest cost of living in the world, with a gross national income per capita of $1,280. The government of this country does not impose any limits on foreign nationals who seek to own real estate assets, and in fact encourages these residents to do so. The cost of real estate assets in this country is typically high. The most expensive ones may be located in Nazle and Freeport's major cities. A 3-bedroom apartment in the city center costs around $3,800, while a comparable apartment outside of the capital city costs around $2,900. Foreigners who purchase a home for more than $250,000 must pay a 10% stamp tax, which is usually split between the seller and the buyer. A plate of food at an affordable restaurant in the Bahamas can cost between $10 and $20, while a 3-course meal for 2 people at a mid-range restaurant can cost between $60 and $100. A one-way ticket for local transportation costs $1.25, while a monthly pass costs between $56 and $150. Taxi charges start at around $10 with an extra fee of roughly $1 per kilometer. This factors makes this country to be amongst the top most expensive countries to live in. 3. Norway. Although the cost of living in Norway is high, this is not reflected in the high earnings offered to employees and workers. The average cost of living in this country will vary depending on your lifestyle and where you choose to live. Though you may anticipate to spend between $2,176 and $4,352 per month on average, you may spend more in Norway's main cities. Oslo, Bergen, Stavanger, and Trondheim are among the most costly cities in Norway. A single person's cost of living in one of these big cities is around $1,150, not including rent. The cost of living for a family of 4 is projected to be $4,190, excluding housing rent. Food is pricey in this Scandinavian country since much of it is imported. A 2-person lunch in a low-priced restaurant will cost around $20, while a 3-course meal for 2 will cost around $100. In Norway, public schools are free, and this includes higher education. Even international students can attend a Norwegian institution for free. For persons under the age of 16, as well as pregnant and lactating mothers, health care is relatively free in this country. Everyone else pays a yearly deductible of about $222, and in exchange, you get an exemption card that gives you free health care for the remainder of the year. Despite being one of the most expensive countries in the world to live in, it is nevertheless a fantastic place to visit. 2. Switzerland. Switzerland's average cost of living is extremely expensive. For a 1-bedroom apartment, rent alone was roughly $2,150 per month. The average monthly wage in this country is over $7,000, rising to around $10,300 for employment in specialized industries such as the pharmaceutical sector. A single person's living expenses, excluding rent, totaled at least $1,600 per month. The cost of living in larger cities is higher than in smaller cities. In Zurich and Geneva, a 1-bedroom apartment will set you back roughly $1,250. Public education is free and university tuition is on average less than $2,150 per year. An individual is supposed to purchase private health insurance on his or her own. Because food prices are high, you may anticipate to spend at least $110 per week on groceries. Because eating out is so expensive, especially in cities like Zurich and Geneva, locals frequently cook at home. 1. Iceland. The average monthly wage in Iceland, according to Icelandic statistics, is around $3,160 before taxes. In one of the largest cities, the average monthly rent for a 1-bedroom apartment is $1,000. Food, clothing, medical treatments, transportation, communication, and other services might cost up to $150 for a single person. A family of 4, on the other hand, will spend around $5,200 on the same services. Although there is an application fee of about $333 to pay at public universities, private institutions charge about $1,500 per term because there are normally 2 academic terms in a year. The Icelandic Health Insurance Fund and patient donations both contribute to the country's universal healthcare system. This implies that while healthcare is not free, it is also not prohibitively expensive. If you enjoyed our tour around the world's 10 most expensive nations to live in, please leave a comment with your thoughts on the list, or better yet, give the video a like and share it. If you haven't already done so, subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thank you for viewing. Stay tuned for more amazing Grace Media videos.